Hi, my name is Addy Madoya. Welcome to my world. I'm an architectural designer and I'm very passionate about architectural visualization and bridging communication gaps in the design process in order to bring ideas to life in a more consumable manner. The early childhood, I was brought up in Isli, and my parents would move later on to Nairobi West and then Kawangware. And then finally we'd move to Rimpa and sides of Rongai. The most significant part of my childhood would be my teenagehood. It built my ambition. I really knew where I wanted to be in life. And also, I was just really glad for what my parents were doing to just make sure they accommodate our dreams. So my earliest memory was in class 1, I think second term. We were given an assignment to go and draw 5 items you liked. And so I went home, I told Broly, this is my assignment, but I really want to do it myself. I just want you to help me. And Broly said, no worries. He told me, what do you want to draw? I told him I want to draw a gun. Of course, you're kids and we loved action movies, so a gun seemed perfect. I remember the next day when I went to school, that was the talk. Like, did you see Adrian drew a gun? And all the girls came rushing, they're like, he drew a gun, that's a bad guy. So it was a very interesting experience, and I went back to Broly and I was like, oh my God, we need to do this a lot more.
Since I knew Adrian in class 4, I always knew this guy liked to draw. Like, he's been drawing these intricate designs of houses since back then. So this is something that I always knew he had as a talent. He's been doing it consistently when I was in school, and I was always like, bro, I can barely draw a house, and this guy is here drawing houses with rulers, and he's measuring everything quite intricate, quite meticulous in how he thinks things through. And as mentioned, it's something I know that he always wanted to do. So I mean, I think architecture was something that was like a foresight for him in any case. So the fact that he's what he is right now is quite telling of his past, I guess.
Like every other child, I aspired to be a pilot. Then towards the end of class 8, I wanted to be an actuary. The motivation for either was I wanted to make it really early in life. And so I thought, if I become an actuary, I'm going to earn $500,000 state of campus. Or if I become a pilot, I'm going to have a blue Subaru with pilot shirts everywhere I walk and stunner glasses. But also I considered architecture from a very distant point of view because I was drawing houses for my friends as early as class 7. I knew the basics of how to walk around a floor plan, and I could visualize how you could walk from room to room. But only in my head, I just wondered how will my friends see this and understand what I'm trying to tell them. My firstborn brother had set the bar so high. He was a smart chap, and you'd see how much favor he'd get from my parents just because he was smart, or rather did really well in school. Towards the end of primary school, I knew I wanted to pursue aviation and I wanted to start as early as possible. So my options, of course, number 1 was Mangu, like I can pursue it from there. And then my brother told me, actually, you can go to Maseno. They're actually the best school in aviation in the country. I was told it was going to be slightly expensive. I was scared for my parents. And what challenge to present to them to have to pay that fee. I was aiming for the KQ AB initial program, where they sponsor kids straight from high school. The leverage would be if you've done aviation in high school, it was easier to absorb you into the program and take you to South Africa, training in the best school, and then you'd come, they'd give you a job, and I mean, you'd be sorted by the time you're 20 for sure. And so when I go to Maseno, that just kept ringing in my head. If they're gonna pick anyone from the school, then you need to be the best for you to be safe. Unfortunately, when you get to Form 3, the wrangles in KQ became bigger and bigger and bigger. This time KQ was going under and the AB initial was almost completely being reconsidered. And my dad did everything he could do within his might to try and make sure my career is safeguarded, but that didn't seem possible. Yeah, so when I didn't get the opportunity to pursue aviation, so up is right about this period, my brother has graduated from medical school and had just finished his internship. So he came back home and surprised my mom with very lovely gifts, a new fridge, new TV, and my mom was just so excited. I'll never forget the image I had of my mom in that excitement at that moment. And I always told myself I would really love to make her feel that way as well. And for a moment, it's like, okay, maybe I should become a doctor. And I ended up joining med school just from the mentorship I got from my brother. You really think you're smart until you join med school, because the people who get admitted to med school are the cream of every other school in the country.
So I met Adrian in October 2014 in the first year of medical school. We connected on like non-school things, and that's how me and Adrian formed a friendship.
I was a very last minute person throughout high school. I was so last minute that I knew I really don't need to understand what's going on in class. I just need a day before the exam and I'll level it up. But med school was different. You can't do that. And so my reading technique suddenly was very unsuccessful, and I kept trying it and it just didn't seem to work. For me, it was really hard to strike the balance between work and school. Work seemed to take a lot more of me than school. I mean, to a point, you'd sit down in class and you're like, okay, these slide shows, I could read them in the evening. Why am I here? And so at the end of the first year, as if no one would be surprised, I failed to satisfy the board, and I was given a retake in 3 out of 5 subjects. It completely crushed my self-esteem. They say familiarity breeds contempt. So every time you get a retake, you feel like you're familiar with everything. So classes, you become even more casual about them. There's a lot of stigma that comes with retaking, especially if people thought you were a bright kid. Everyone has something to say about your failures, and they were really getting to my head. So my reaction was, if I make so much money, you won't be able to face me. My bro was really disappointed. That much he told me one night. If you thought you'd pass last year, this year I can promise you, there's no way you'll pass that exam you failed. They used to say in med school, you can't fail twice. If you had to go through the same process twice, I mean, you'll make the 50%. But funny enough, I failed twice and I couldn't meet the pass mark. This was the lowest moment of my life. My brother felt like I hadn't tried hard enough. My dad felt the same way too. My mom was just lost for words. She didn't know. She was ready to take my lead. I just took time and ran away from everything. For a week, I didn't talk to anyone, changed my phone number. At this point, I was living alone in Kilimani. I locked myself in my house. And one night, after probably a Sunday night, I went home, showed up by surprise. My mom welcomes me like nothing happened. But then she texted me right before she fell asleep. She was like, yeah, please come to my room. And I came and I sat on her bed. And she told me, okay, what have you decided? I was not going back to med school. I made it clear. I said, Mom, I'm going to do architecture. Okay.
After medical school, I only saw him being an architect or like a pilot. So it was either one of the two things. And I feel like architecture suited his personality very well, because the one thing that stood out about him in med school was he was very well kept together. Like, Adrian knows how to package himself.
Arch school at first year was not what I thought it would be. First year was a terrible time of my life. Apart from my own self-will, there was nothing. There was actually nothing. I was just also lost, and everyone was waiting for my lead because there had never been an architect in my family. Rumors would always move around school that there were certain individuals that were doing pretty well out of this career. So in this case, I was really interested in the rumors that were going around through 2 particular individuals. One of them would end up being my mentor, Mark Kiari. I would learn that Mark was working for the top architectural practice in Africa, and he was in third year. Well, the second one was called Robert. Robert was working on freelance, but he was just making so much for himself. Naturally, I was just drawn to them. I wanted to know what's it about them that maybe I needed to pick and embrace and make out of myself. I approached both of them individually, invited them both to my house at this point. I invited Mark for dinner. Let's just talk very casually. And also, on a separate occasion, I invited Robert. I realized I had a lot of learning to do, but I was sure this is the direction I wanted to take. Either direction, I wanted to be financially independent from this career. It had to make me money.
It was quite a surprising move, to be honest, because I think this history tells us that a mentor is someone who's meant to be older than you. We'd have like these meetings where he'd ask me things like, okay, like how would I apply for an internship? If I get like my first client, how am I supposed to act? Like, do I need a contract? How am I supposed to make sure I deliver the best value for my customer or for my client? So we kind of had this sort of conversations.
And one of the last meetings I had with Mark told me, what do you know how to do? I think I'm really good at drawing and sketching. Like, yeah, work with that. Become so good in that one thing that if they ever ask who's the best sketch architect you can get, they'll say Addy. Sure. I bought pencils and I bought a sketchbook. That's when I started Sketch a Day. That's when London begins. Every night before I'd go to bed, after I've told all my friends good night, then I'd just sit down to sketch. I'd get so lost in it. I'd sketch for hours. I'd sketch from midnight all the way to 5 a.m. and I'd post it right before I go to bed. I'd wake up to 60, 100 DMs, reactions. People are just so excited to see, okay, this just looks like magic, and no one would actually appreciate how much time it took to come up with some of these things. And so one day, someone saw the story and they DM'd me and told me, hi, you're an architect? I don't know I'm an architect, I'm in school of architecture. That should show you just how I lacked confidence. And like, no, but I've seen your work, you sure are an architect. If you insist, then I'm an architect. Good, come to my office at 10 a.m. on Monday. I have some work for you. And he told me, okay, so we're trying to design this containerized project. And the architect we're working on, we felt like his creativity had let us down. So just bring something useful out of this. So give me 10 days. In 10 days, I wasn't ready. On the 12th day, he called and I told him, give me 2 more days. In 14 days, I wasn't ready. In 21 days, I wasn't ready. By the 21st day, I was so close to giving up. And I gave it probably 11 hours of each on my day. And then probably after 25 days, I finally sent back the project to the person. He never replied, so I knew I had messed up. Another person notices again and texts, DMs, and like, I want you to design a restaurant proposal for me in Karen. Are you able to do it? And this time I was lucky that we had just gone into holiday and I agreed to it. So I take up the job. I tell him I'm going to charge you 15,000. He bargained to $130. I finished the work in 7 days, and the guy really loved the work. The first paycheck was $130, and I'll never forget how I felt just when that money came through my phone. I'm like, this is finally it. I've made money from my career. I posted the work on social media, and the guy whose work I had let him down a few months before was one of the first people to reply, and he told me, I feel cheated. Come to my office on Monday. I came back to his office. He gave me the same brief. They still didn't have an architect to fill the shoe. Went back home, did the same job in 7 days, and I'll never forget his reaction. He had promised to pay me $100, but he paid me $150. That's just how much he appreciated the value His first statement was, "Now, Addy, I'm going to make you a millionaire." I didn't know what that meant. A month later, he tells me, "I want to introduce you to this really big client. He wants to build apartments, and I've recommended you for the job. You tell him you've done it." The client was willing to spend about 300,000 in design fees. I had a virtual reality tour of the apartments and how they were going to look. I sat in the car and showed the presentation, and it just kept on going like, wow, wow. That was the reaction throughout, and I finished and I'm like, okay, do you think I'm ready for tomorrow? Like, okay, Addy, I know his budget is 300,000, but he had raised it to 1.2 million. But tomorrow I wanted to ask for 2.5 million. I was so scared. Now, there was no longer any more excitement about the work we had done anymore. There's just so much anxiety about how everything was going to turn out the next day. I went back to the house and that was the longest night, and the meeting was at 6 a.m. Showed up for the meeting, went to the boardroom, presented, and when I was done, they really loved the work. It was very open. It had completely satisfied the brief they had for the project. And they were like, okay, yeah, I think you really have the job. Tell us what's next. And I told them, okay, maybe we need to discuss my fees. So it was a very tense moment. We were four of us in a very long boardroom table. And so the client asked, okay, how much are you going to charge me for this work? And as I was shaking, my mouth just said, I'm going to charge you 2.2 million. And I'll never forget the reaction in the boardroom. Everyone was just so shocked. And it was so bad that the client stood up from his center seat in the boardroom and walked out of the room. And I felt so bad about everything. This guy went and toyed with his mind for a minute or two. And he was like, it's worth it. It's worth it. This is how much I'm willing to pay for this job to be executed. That would be how I'd make my first million.
We kind of talked about it, but as soon as we started it just kind of took on a life of its own, which was pretty much driven by like the customers he was serving and like the value creation like he was trying to do. So he's done quite a stellar job with that, I have to admit. Like he's really created such a beautiful brand, which has created a ton of value for his customers and his clients.
My brother used to tell me, talent can never beat discipline. Yeah, talent can never, you could be so good at what you do, but anyone who can do even just a fraction of what you do consistently can easily beat you at your own game. Discipline makes a difference. Yeah, discipline always makes a difference, and consistency. So you wake up every day, and they say compound interest, yeah, is the eighth wonder of the world. Yeah, so you do something small every day, but it compounds at a very fast rate and becomes bigger than you could ever have done at an instance. The book that would change it for me would become a book called The Design of Business: Why Design Thinking is the Next Competitive Advantage by Roger Martin. This book taught me a lot. One of the most important lessons I learned about it is just an intuitive approach to design. They say intuition is knowing without thinking, just your immediate reaction. And that book made a really great impact in my life. It completely changed how I looked at design and how I needed to, or rather how the company needed to make design more intuitive and interesting, and otherwise anyone else could have done the job. Yeah. From a documentary I once watched, it's called Inside Bill's Brain. Inside Bill's Brain is a story about Bill Gates, and they say an emotional connection is always retail. From a book by Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference. I learned something called this prospect theory, where people will take a greater risk to avoid losses, even when the gains have a better probability. The future for London Consult, we are building the greatest design consultancy in this end of the world. Every day we're closer to that. We're building a one-stop shop, and where clients will be able to interact with design on the next level, on the cutting edge of technology.
What London Consult is now and what London Consult was even 6 months ago, a year ago, there's like a ton of growth. I always say sometimes like it's almost embarrassing looking at the work which was being done a year ago and the work that's being done now. Like, how did we think that was like that good? Because what is going on now is like really, really amazing.
We want to make design more easy to communicate with the client. We are thinking of 3D studios where clients will be able to walk in and completely experience houses they've not yet built, even on site, and they can contribute a lot more into the design. There'll be no surprises in construction anymore. What you see is what you get. Every day is an opportunity to better yourself. London Consult is going to be a demonstration of just my ability in management of resource, especially human resource, and identifying just the right people for the best output in jobs. I really don't know what lies ahead. I mean, maybe I could run for office. I don't know. God knows. Yeah.